Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Omniverse of Nick and part 22 to the Mcqueen Walking Dead story. I'm your host, Nick. And like always, before we get into today's episode, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the Omniverse of Nick channel, and comment your favorite parts or parts of ongoing or past stories, as well as future recommendations for what-ifs and general discussion that one day you might get to see on the channel in the future. And with all that out of the way, we are in to the third to last part of this tale. So if you want to catch up or get into the story, I suggest you do it now. With that, let's get into the episode. So, Judith has just rescued Yumiko's group, and Rick and Jesse, along with Deanna and all the other leader types of the communities, are more than happy to welcome them in. And we get to touch on relationship and key details while we're at it. Rick and Jesse have had a kid, who we're going to call for this story Thunder, with a lightning bolt tattoo on the side of his cheek, and he is currently 6 years old. And he was named Thunder, specifically also with the lightning tattoo to be named directly after Mcqueen, because thunder always comes after lightning. I think that would be a great twist from Lightning McQueen, and it would be really sweet to name a kid like after the car that he rescued. Carl and Mika, they also have a kid, which, like I've said, we're actually getting a much more with their relationship than the Merle story. Also, last relationship that we're really going to touch upon for now, that's in great detail, is Rosita and Spencer, who go with Eugene to the tower and work on the stuff that they did at the beginning kind of sequence of season 9. And Mcqueen is there too. And once the Horde shows up, he's able to get the three of them out there easily. So they don't even get to figure out what the big thing was. All they know is that there was a Horde there, and it just followed them there. So they get back to Alexandria, and like I said, this means that we're going to get that Whisperer twist in a much different way, and not that big a way either, because of obvious reasons. And Eugene, even though it feels like it was just a Horde, he still feels like something is up. But Mcqueen really says that even though he sort of thinks the same thing, he rushed out of there with them instantly, and it just seemed like there was a Horde. It didn't seem like there was a big deal, and they've gotten through Hordes before, so they just pretty much go on with their normal stuff, try to avoid the little matter. Meanwhile, at a familiar camp, we get introduced to the Whisperers. There's no other way to hide that fact. And Whisperers, or at least one of them that was in the pack to find Eugene and Rosita and the cannon and, all that stuff, they get killed and reprimanded by Alpha since they failed to actually yield results and talking about a talking car. But Alpha then hears a very familiar voice to all of us saying that you should have listened to your men when they said about that car. Negan, with a bloody scar at the side of his neck, a bat in hand, and walks up right to Alpha, presents himself to all the Whisperers and says, I have knowledge that I think you'll want to know. But Beta, he is not willing to listen to this guy, and he just walked into their camp saying, oh, I got knowledge, you should have listened to your men. Like, no, Beta doesn't buy that for a second and wants to kill him. But Alpha says that if he's got knowledge, if he knows something, speak, but she ain't gonna listen long. Negan says that, once again, he introduces himself and says, should have listened to your men about that car and those people. And he tells Alpha and the Whisperers about his experience with that certain group. getting his army taken from him and almost getting himself killed in the process, narrowly escaping whenever his army was all killed and getting away. But they are not just dealing with normal people and a big army. That car is very real. So if anything, those few men, they might have counted for something. She's going to need everything that she'll have if she wants to take down this group. Alpha, she takes this all in. But in the grand scheme of things, a talking car and... Okay, the big groups and everything, she finds that all a joke because she already did. But this car nonsense, she really finds it just silly. And this guy just coming out of nowhere, he could have been anywhere. But knowing Alpha and how she looked at Negan, even before he actually passed the test in canon, she asks him one good reason why this should all be true. And he says he has no reason to lie. He has nothing except the bat in his hand and the vest on his back. And a bloody scar to show from it. And Alpha is just like, nothing else to go off of, so she believes him. Very, very weirdly. And she says that if it's a true game of cars and armies that they want, Alpha is more than willing to play the game her way. And she tells Beta and all the Whisperers to gather her horde and all the Whisperers they could spare. Because this might actually be a threat. But Alpha and Beta have a conversation beforehand about Beta questioning this and Alpha believing this nonsense. But, be honest, what they've done up to this point, it has defied what humanity honestly was. So, Alpha has no reason almost in the grand scheme of things not to believe it. And they summon the Horde. And Alpha says that if Negan's lying about any of this or trying to play this to his advantage, he'll join the Horde as well. And he is definitely going to be tested throughout this. And she leads her army towards the communities. Dale is the first one outside of Alexandria to see, all of his old years, the most terrifying thing he would ever see. A humongous horde coming straight towards them. And this is no ordinary horde. It is the biggest, most terrifying, humongous horde ever seen. And it kind of was, to be honest with you. Rick sees this too, along with everyone. And even with Mcqueen, he knows that there's no way they can do this just Alexandria. They need help. And he radios for help. And soon enough, just in the nick of time, Jesus and all of the Hilltop people he can scramble together, along with the Kingdom's fighters, who none of them have died, all gather. And we would get an epic shot of Rick, Mcqueen, and every single able-bodied fighter from the Kingdom, Hilltop, and Alexandria to fight in the hardest fight that they're ever going to fight in. That was a lot of fight, by the way. And once the Horde gets in close enough proximity and good enough proximity as a whole, Rick raises his one good arm in the air and says to rain fire. And oh boy, they do. Every single person rains fire, just completely just showing that they mean business. And Mcqueen does the same thing. Now, he is not able to fly, but this was the best shot I could get of him firing multiple weapons and coloring him in, so bear with the picture. The point is, the walkers are completely trounced, but it is not instant. This is the longest fight that they would have to fight besides the farm's opening horde, except different here because it's a huge horde, so it would take some time, but they do exhaust a lot of ammo doing this. Alpha after all this, is completely flabbergasted that her army has just been dealt with. And she looks at Negan and's like, Negan knows now he's gonna have to pull his weight with the Whisperers to show that since Alpha now believes him, he's gonna still have to pull his weight and actually come through for the Whisperers. Alpha will expect that much. But Negan, he's not so into the prospect of getting himself killed after narrowly escaping death for over 6 years. So Negan, he honestly is very conflicted right now, knowing what he's about to go up against. So he makes the ultimate decision for himself and yells out from behind the big wall of bushes and trees, "We're right here! Come and get us!" And before Alpha, Beta, or any of the other Whisperers can stop him or shut him up or try to run, every single last bullet that everyone over in Alexandria has, along with Mcqueen, fires in the direction of them, killing all of them. Rick, McQueen, especially, their friendship blossoming even more so over these 6 years celebrating this moment with everybody, is interrupted by Negan just jumping out, seemingly unhurt, and introducing himself to the group again, only to get gunned down instantly. Now, hold on a second, I know what you guys are all thinking. Nick, why would you bring back Negan from getting his throat bitten out to have him join the Whisperers, even though he did so in canon, just in a very different way, just to have him die like that? Well, you see, when you got people like Rick, Morgan, and Daryl, and the likes of McQueen around, and the way that I wrote Negan to coming back here, honestly, even though he survived a throat wound before, just the way it happened and the way I paired it, Negan was kind of screwed from the start. So, what can you do? By the way, side note, Georgie did come across the group before the 6-year time skip, except with McQueen and the community's freaking thriving, her help was not really required. So she kind of went off and just did her own thing. It's not really worth bringing her up. After all that, Eugene builds and fixes the radio and what he was doing with that, and goes on the trip with Ezekiel and Yumiko, meet the princess, finds the Commonwealth, except, like my Merle story, I think the Merle story or the Madison story, whichever one, Jesus goes along with them. Just Jesus, though. So that's the only difference. And after that, Alexandria has had some very big developments after this. Relationship, family tree, and all that before the Reapers and the semi-final part coming up next time to end the story soon. That's all for now. What do you guys think will happen next? How'd you like the episode, and what is your favorite part so far? Which is definitely more beneficial than ever to point out, since, like I said, next part's the semi-final part. With all that out of the way, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the Omniverse of Nick, and comment your favorite part or parts of ongoing or past stories, as well as future requests for what-ifs and general discussion. With all that out of the way, you guys definitely don't want to miss the last 2 parts of this amazing story.